You know that jolt. You send a message and instantly spot the typo. You drop a spoon in a silent kitchen. You give the wrong answer out loud. And before you can even think, a hot spike of shame shoots through you. It is fast, physical, and far bigger than the mistake deserves. This video is about that spike. It is about why your brain punishes you so hard for tiny, harmless errors and where that fierce little alarm came from. So let's start with just how fast it is. In 1993, a scientist named William Gehring wired people up to measure their brain activity while they did quick, error-prone tasks. And he found something remarkable. The instant a person made a mistake, a sharp electrical signal fired in the brain. It came within about a tenth of a second. That is faster than you can consciously notice the error yourself. Your brain flags the slip before you even know you made it. Which means the shame you feel is not a decision, it is a reflex, a built-in alarm, firing automatically, long before the thinking part of your mind catches up. Scientists named that signal the error-related negativity, and they wanted to know where in the brain it was coming from. So they went looking for the source. In 1994, a researcher named Stanislas Dehaene traced the signal to a specific region deep in the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex. Later work using magnetic scans pointed to the same place. This mattered because it meant the error signal was not just random noise on the surface of the scalp, it was coming from a real, specific piece of the brain. A piece with a job. This region does not only flag your mistakes, it also helps manage attention, effort, and conflict. In other words, the same small hub that keeps you focused is the one that punishes you when you slip. This little hub sits at the crossroads of attention, control, and even pain, and it acts like a smoke detector for your own behavior, watching every action, ready to shriek the moment something goes wrong. But here is the real question. Why would evolution build an alarm this harsh for something as small as a typo? To understand that, we have to look at the world this brain was built for, and that world was far less forgiving than ours. But for most of human history, life ran much closer to the edge. In studies of hunter-gatherer peoples like the Aksh and the Hiwi, researchers such as Kim Hill and Magdalena Hurtado found that mortality was strikingly high. Accidents and violence together could account for more than half of all deaths among young adults. Now, we have to be careful here. This does not mean half of people died from tiny slip-ups. The big killers were serious things: injury, infection, conflict. Other researchers, Michael Gervin and Hillard Kaplan, gathered survival data across many such groups. On average, only about 57% of children reached the age of 15. Life was fragile in a way that is hard for us to imagine now. Death was not a distant idea. It sat close, every single day. But it does mean the margin for error was thin. A careless step near a cliff, a moment of inattention while hunting, a social blunder that turned powerful people against you. In a world like that, mistakes could carry real weight, so a brain that hated errors, that flinched hard and remembered, had a genuine survival advantage. The people who felt that sharp sting were the ones who learned fast and stayed careful. And there is another layer to it, because not all mistakes are physical. Many of the ones we dread most are social. In 2003, a researcher named Naomi Eisenberger had people play a ball game in a brain scanner, then quietly left them out of it. When that rejection happened, the same anterior cingulate cortex lit up, the very region that handles physical pain. Which means your brain treats a social mistake a little like a wound. Say the wrong thing at a meeting, and the flush of embarrassment you feel is running through pain-related circuits. For our ancestors, this made sense too. Losing the group's trust was dangerous, so the brain learned to guard reputation with something close to physical alarm. So we inherited a fast, fierce, deeply useful error alarm. The problem is the world it now runs in, because the modern world does something strange to that alarm. It cranks up the stakes on things that are not actually dangerous at all. But watch what happens when everything is riding on one performance. In 2012, a scientist named Vikram Chib studied exactly this. He offered people money to perform a physical skill, with rewards climbing higher and higher. And he found a tipping point. As the reward got large, people did not do better. They started to do worse. Their brains had begun treating the big prize not as something to win, but as something they were terrified to lose. That fear of loss made them tighten up and fail. It is the science of choking under pressure. The more they wanted it, the more their brain framed the moment as a threat, and the threatened brain does not perform. It protects. It braces for the mistake instead of reaching for the win, which means our ancient error alarm gets hijacked by modern high stakes. The job interview, the first date, the test. None of them threaten your life, But the brain, feeling how much you care, floods you with the same dread it once saved for real danger. And that dread can make you fumble the very thing you most wanted to get right. But there is one more twist, and it is a modern one. The culture around that alarm has been getting louder. In 2019, two researchers named Thomas Curran and Andrew Hill gathered perfectionism scores from more than 40,000 college students, measured across nearly 30 years. And the trend was clear. Perfectionism had risen sharply. The steepest climb was in one particular kind, the feeling that other people expect you to be perfect. That had jumped by around a third, which means we are pouring fuel on an already sensitive alarm. Social media, constant comparison, and a culture of flawless highlight reels tell us that every mistake is being watched and judged. So a brain that was already quick to punish small errors now lives in a world that seems to demand we never make any. The smoke detector was always loud. Now we have filled the whole house with smoke. And this hits some people harder than others. Research on anxiety has found that in more anxious minds, that error signal fires even stronger. So if a small mistake sometimes hits you like a disaster, it may not be a flaw in your character. It may simply be an alarm that was tuned a little higher than most, firing a little louder, a little longer, at the very same small slips everyone else makes too. So put it together. You carry a lightning-fast error detector, built to keep fragile ancestors alive in a world where mistakes could kill. It fires before you can think. It treats social slips like physical pain. And it was never designed for a modern life where the stakes feel enormous, but the real danger is gone. But once you see the alarm for what it is, something changes. That spike of shame after a small mistake is not the truth about you. It is an old warning system, doing the only thing it knows how to do, in a world it no longer fits. It is still trying, faithfully, to protect you from a cliff that is not there anymore. And here is the part that matters most. You cannot learn anything new without making mistakes. Every skill, every language, every craft is built out of hundreds of small errors, each one flagged by that same screaming alarm. If you obey it, you stop trying. You stay safe, small, and still. If you understand it, you can let it fire, feel the sting, and keep going anyway. The alarm does not get a vote on whether you grow. So the next time that hot spike of shame shoots through you over some tiny, harmless slip, remember what it actually is. It is not proof that you failed. It is that same old guard, still faithfully doing its job. You can thank it for its service and take the next clumsy step forward anyway. Let it ring, feel the heat, and reach for the thing you wanted anyway. The typo gets fixed. The dropped spoon gets picked up. The wrong answer teaches you the right one. None of it is the disaster your alarm insists it is. That is not you failing at all. That is simply what learning has always looked like.